So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Please take your seat. And we'd like to start our next panel discussion here. Welcome to our panel on higher gains with higher education. My name is Thomas Becks. I'm with the VDE, the Association for Electrical, Electronic and Information Technologies. It's one of the leading associations for science and technology in Europe with 35,000 personal members and about 1,300 corporate members. Well, we have learned a lot on strategic investments today, that they should lead to market success, and innovation stands for market success, of course, and what are the most important building blocks for market success? That's the question. You have already heard today about conditions surrounding research and development and manufacturing, about protecting innovations and about money as a driver. And what we would like to do now is to talk to you about the partnership between education and research institutes and companies. And you will see from the titles here from the panelists that some of the persons are living in, or all of the persons here are living in both worlds. As well, the company world as in the education world. And so that's first-hand information for you, I think. We here, that's your panel. It's Professor Robert G. Wilhelm to my left here. He's the Executive Director of the Charlotte Research Institute in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's Charles Vaillant. I hope the name is somewhat correct pronounced. Pretty close, yes. Pretty close, yeah, that's fine. He is Vice President Innovation and Corporate Strategy at MANN+HUMMEL, a very old German company, I think. And to my left, Professor Dr. Michael Heuken. He's Vice President Corporate Research and Development at AIXTRON SE, and as you see from his title, a professor as well. He's a professor at the Aachen University. So the agenda is now how to find partners, how to capitalize on these relationships with the new partners, and how to recruit top talent. That's the task given to us from the organizer and printed in your program as well. And so in the first part of our panel, I would like to address some basic questions on this for the panel. Also to introduce you, the audience, to the theme. And in the second part, I would like to encourage you to ask your questions as well. So, and in doing so, please say us your name and the organization you come from. So, first a question for Professor Wilhelm. You are very successful in bringing together university research with industry. Your organization supports 23 startup companies, 13 established companies with R&D presence, and numerous partnerships with companies like SAS and Siemens. When you look back at the end of a year, when are you most satisfied with your work of the year?
Well, I think from year to year, as we look at the success of our organization, we look for impact in three different types of ways. My university is a public university in the United States. Part of our mission is to have impact on the economic community as well as the cultural or social community, and that's certainly something we look at. That's a long-term type of goal for any university. Things don't happen overnight. More immediately, we look at the talent that we create in terms of students that we graduate, but also in terms of the faculty members, the professors that we attract and that we keep in our location. Because having talent in a location is key to economic growth, and it's key to standard of living. The third thing that we look at is just the types of results and the impact that we have, whether it is discoveries, whether it's new innovations that our company partners are taking into the marketplace, or if it's impact on the standard of living or the quality of life for the world. So those are the kinds of things that we look for on a year-by-year basis. My university is relatively new. We're on a very dramatic growth curve. In many of these areas that I'm talking about, we can quantify it. We're seeing on the order of 30% growth per year in the R&D investment that we have on our campus. We're typically placing a very large percentage of our students, whether they're in technical areas or in more humanities areas, with our company partners around the region or around the nation or the world. And we, of course, are seeing many of these kinds of the impacts that our talent are created in terms of new products. So those are the sorts of things we look for.
So you're looking for new partners, new talents, and new products as well. So it's all the three of them.
Yeah.
Okay. Professor Heuken, you live in two worlds, as I said before, as Vice President Corporate Research and Development and as a professor at the Aachen University. From your point of view, what are the differences between Germany and the United States regarding this both worlds, these both worlds?
Yeah, indeed, I have the great opportunity to pick the best of two worlds. So the best of the industry work and the best of the university work. So I really enjoy my life. And so what is the difference between United States and Germany? I think in Germany we have a quite unique position here. So I'm able to teach, I'm able to attract the best students into my lectures, and I'm able to provide from my industry side very interesting tasks, and I'm able to deliver interesting work to the students. So that is a very unique position. I think in the United States, when I talk to my colleagues in the United States is much more complicated. They always have a conflict of interest, how they call it. I don't see a conflict. I see interest, yes, but the overlap of interest is very large. So the students would like to see interesting tasks, interesting scientific challenges. Industry would like to see a successful development, an interesting product. So I see no conflict, but that is a typical US issue. And we also discussed earlier today the issue of patents. And I can tell you, we do a lot of cooperation with universities. And the worst point in the discussion with the universities comes up when we talk about how do we share IP. What happens with the knowledge we develop, what happens with the patents. And I'm very happy that in Germany we have very good universities with very good lawyers, and they clearly understand a patent belongs to industry, and if it is a good patent, industry will pay for that. Because paying the inventors is only a small fraction of the total cost of a patent. So usually we have a long discussion, but then we find an agreement how we pay, and of course industry will pay for the invention. And in the US, when I talk to the universities in the US, they have very good lawyers. Maybe they earn a lot of money. But to come to agreement is very, very difficult, and sometimes we need to refuse the cooperation because we find no agreement how to share the IP. So that is a major roadblock, and so I'm happy that we are in Europe or in Germany we have a very good agreement. So there are some differences, and of course I need to talk about my students. I think we have very good students in Europe, in Germany. They are very well educated, so maybe some other professors will tell me the skills, they changed and they are not so good educated as maybe 10 years ago. But so maybe I'm very happy in my group. I have very good talents, really great guys, really good people, and we really enjoy working together. And sometimes in other countries I find less skilled and less motivated people. So I think we have very good people, and that is important for me in industry, because usually the way is first I send my students for internship into the US because we have an office or a company in the Silicon Valley that's very attractive for the students. Then they come back to Aachen, they do their master thesis, they attend my lecture. Then we try to find a PhD program. Usually after, then they are with us for maybe 5 years. Usually we hire them afterwards. And so that's a very, very good program. And really the leading group leaders in our company come from this kind of track. So that's very, very interesting for us. And unfortunately, that was not possible so far with foreign students out of the US, but maybe we are working on that.
I think we will come back to that issue on the different countries and so on later on. But maybe, Professor Wilhelm, you can give us a quick answer on this patent issue. What about the quality of the lawyers in North Carolina?
Well, I think there were 2 points that were brought up here. One in terms of the patent aspects, and I think now I've lost track of the first one. But what I'd say is that there certainly are a few, the other one's conflict of interest. That there are a few regulatory hurdles that U.S. universities face because there are federal regulations, and there are some very particular regulations about patents, and there are some very particular regulations about conflict of interest. However, well, I'll tell you, Michael, is I think you need to come to more universities because what the federal government tells us is that we have to manage risk. We have to manage risk in terms of our conflict of interest, and we have to some degree, we need to manage risk or opportunity in terms of our patents. And in both cases, I would just say that both my university, but other universities even in my state, so if at North Carolina State University, these public universities, we take a much more aggressive position in terms of managing the conflict of interest and also in terms of offering access to patents even before, or offering access to IP even before any inventions are made. So there's quite a bit of I think, operating space in the United States to address these things, although I appreciate very well at the universities that perhaps are in the strongest bargaining position or with the most customers, they are, of course, a lot more aggressive with their lawyers. So, yeah.
So is that one of the things you have to learn when you go over for the US to go in partnerships in the US?
Sure, of course. It always depends on your partner, on the university, on the lawyer, and I think also on the kind of models you can propose. So usually you will find a solution how to run the things. Sometimes you need to find new solutions, but usually we find solutions. So it's not only the IP, but also the right to publish the results you have. Sure. So a master thesis is an examination with a mark afterwards, and that's not a business. That is part of the education. Yeah, but we would like to find synergies to push our business. So it's simple. We would like to pick best of both worlds.
So Professor Wilhelm gave us the idea that it's possible to circumvent the problems in North Carolina, and maybe you can give us a proof for that, because Charles Vaillant is responsible for innovation and corporate strategy, and he recently created an innovation center on the campus of North Carolina State University, and you established I2M as a new startup company as well at the same location.
That's correct.
Yeah, and maybe you can give us some more background information, why you are doing so and what are your experiences.
Sure, absolutely. So my company is called MANN+HUMMEL. It's a 74-year-old company located in southern Germany. We are the market leader of filters. You probably have never heard of a company except maybe a few German folks in the room here. The brands that we sell to the market is MANN Filter in Europe, Purolator in the United States. So to be in that space, to be a German company, you have to be very good at what you do. You have to have operation excellence. And if you do operation excellence, you have to be very good at quality, zero defect culture, and so on. The problem with this is, therefore, you're very conservative, you're very risk adverse, and you're probably not very fast. And several years ago, we decided to really speed up our growth and our future visions, and we have defined a strategy to accelerate growth through innovation. At that time, we really broke down the old concept of everything has to be invented in Stuttgart, and we decided to really look at partners around the globe to do research with us. And one of the potential was North America, and we found North Carolina State University, not because of the weather and because of all the great things that have to offer, but because there was an institute there that was doing research on fibers, and it was probably one of the best institutes in the world that we knew of. We decided then to put a research team directly on campus. So very unlike traditional German company. The office is very open, so it's very different than what we used to do in the past. Because we have been accelerating innovations, maybe 5 to 10 years ago, we may have 1 or 2 products going to market with innovative technology per year. This year, we'll launch about 15 innovations to the market. So we're really accelerating growth through this. And some of those innovations are not made for the core business. So we were asking ourselves, what do we do now with those innovations that are not fit for our core business? And we decided to look at what others are doing, because we're not always too smart to invent things on our own, so we copy what others are doing. And we decided to set up a startup company that is licensing technology from the core company, from MANN+HUMMEL, and their job is to go to market and prove the business case. They license the technology, they prove the market, they grow the market, and if it works, they license it back to the company. So we started that 6 months ago. So speed is of the essence, and if it doesn't work in one place, then you go somewhere else and you make it happen.
Sounds like a cultural change in your company. How big was your effort to put this forward?
Well, as long as the top management is on board with this, and we had a change of a CEO about 6 years ago now, a German a gentleman that spent some time in the U.S. So he brought part of this U.S. mentality, innovation, speed, and yet understanding the heritage of the company and what the shareholder wanted to do, and was able to craft the right strategy for us.
So that might be a good idea to have persons on board who have experience on both sides. Yeah.
Yeah, and we heard earlier from the other colleagues that the other way works as well. I mean, if you start a business in the U.S., to bring some of the key experts from the home country. We started in 1997 in the U.S. We have now 7 sites. The whole company is about 16,000 employees. We're about 10% in the United States. We just announced a very large acquisition in the United States, so we're about to bring on another 1,000 employees very soon here.
Okay. Well, the first questions in our program is how to find partners, and you both gave us a good example how to find each other. But what about the process? How did you find one another? How long did it take, and to build it up?
You mean to find the right partner for?
Yeah.
Well, in our case, it's just understanding who is doing research. We've been in business for 74 years. We know every university in the world that does research on our product.
Okay.
And we had earmarked actually 3 universities in North America, 1 in Ohio, 1 in Minnesota, and 1 in North Carolina. And the institute that is really state of the art. A little bit by luck, we acquired Pure Leader Filters about a year after that, which is also in North Carolina. So without any scientific design, we ended up to have a lot of activity now in North Carolina, and it's becoming a hub for us.
Okay, that's already part of the answer for my next question: is how to find partners. It's when you look in Germany, here or in Europe, everyone is talking about Silicon Valley as the hotspot for ICT. Of course, we all know it: Apple, Google, and whatever. And recently, the East Coast was discovered for hardware solutions as well. But in between, there are many locations, not well known. We heard about Kansas City just a few minutes ago. So how to find the best one as a regular German company? You have the worldwide experience, 16,000 employees. You are a very big company, of course. But what about smaller sized German companies? How can they find the best partner?
I think that's a question for me. So first of all, on the European level is a different picture. And first of all, I would like to use your argument. We are more than 30 years old, and we know everybody in that field, and so we have a quite good overview what's going on in our area. But nevertheless, we are also interested in topics outside our today main business, because we know market is changing very, very, very fast. So for Europe, what do we do in Europe? We are actively participating in publicly funded projects. So we have Horizon 2020, and maybe you know our European Commission will spend 60 billion over the next 7 years. So large amount of money. Money is interesting for us. I'm a scientist, I'm not so interested in money, I'm interested in the technology behind that. So in this Horizon 2020 project, we connect to partners along the value chain all over Europe, and we can, in a very unofficial way, we can test the knowledge and the understanding and the background of these companies in such a cooperation. So in Europe, we have a very strong network to find partners. Industry partners as well as universities. So the other part is Asia, and we sell 80% of our products to Asia, 10% to United States, and 10% in Europe. So Asia is very interesting for us and not so transparent. So what we like to do is work with our customer, look into the universities, and especially in China, we had already this statement. I think the universities are less developed than in Europe. So I think we don't find strong development partners in Asia, but customer. Also we try to find our customer by looking into the business, how is the business developing, but also into scientific conferences. And the same is true for or Taiwan is another case. We already discussed ITRI, that's a government sponsored research organization. Of course, we have good context to this kind of organizations. We have similar things in Korea, COPT and so on. So we have all these government organizations. So that is the way how we try to find the best partners in Asia.
Mm-hmm. So the public funding is somewhat different in Europe and in the US. Maybe you can say us, first of all, what is it possible that a German company gets funding, public funding in the US?
In terms of R&D activity, there are a number of ways that international companies, German companies, or otherwise can participate with what is U.S. federal funding for R&D. And this really sort of, one example would be something maybe even touches on how you might find partners. So certainly looking for expertise in terms of the scientific community is one way. Another way that we see R&D organized both in the US, but this happens as well in Europe, is through consortia where groups of companies join together to focus on particular R&D targets. Sometimes these consortia are quite applied in terms of what they focus on, and this is one good example where international companies can easily participate and leverage their investment. So when for example, at my campus, I have 6 nationally funded consortia in different applied research areas. One is very close to the last speakers that we had. Dr. Wenzel was talking about metrology equipment. We have the strongest, by far, metrology research center consortia in the U.S., perhaps beyond the U.S., and it attracts both large companies, U.S. companies, it attracts small U.S. companies, it attracts companies from Germany and from U.K., and the investment pattern is such that each company that is putting in a smaller amount of R&D funding is getting about 15-to-1 leverage on their investment, because both are participating in this consortia, but also because they're able to take advantage of the investment that the federal government makes. There are some larger programs that we have, say particularly in semiconductor research or in manufacturing, where it would be more complicated for a German company without a U.S. presence to take part. But if they have a U.S. presence, it would be very natural for that to happen. So, for example, these national institutes that the federal government is funding now for manufacturing research, the latest one funded was in optics, but there's one in digitally integrated manufacturing design, another one in lightweight structures, another one in wide bandgap materials, a few other ones. These are all big opportunities. These programs are funded at the scale of $150 to $200 million over a period of 5 years. And it would, again, for a German company that has a U.S. presence, it'd be very natural for them to participate, but also to take advantage of the leverage of that institute.
If I can add, this is exactly the reason why we are there. I mean, the consortia on non-woven textile is there, and what I like very much about this, it's industry funded. So unlike the public funded program, which we also participate very much in Germany with our German arm, the United States is industry finance. The point is, if they don't deliver, they're not going to get more funding. So they better be aligned with the industry. They better be aligned with our demand to deliver the value. And they are actually very fast. In North Carolina State University, not only the consortia does research for 65 firms, I mean, it's one of the largest in the country. It is tremendous. The production technology that they have is the same or better than my suppliers have. I can walk 10 meters and access that technology and develop product and protect my IP before my supplier can get there. The second thing what they have done, because they were very successful with this, and a lot of companies like us says, can I buy some of that material to start low volume production? They say, well, we are an institute, we can do this. So what did they do? They made a startup company to commercialize low volume scale production. And so they said, we will help you to start your business, but then you have to take it somewhere else. So, you know, the reactivity and the flexibility that they offer is very attractive.
Maybe let me add one other thing that you lightly touched on there. In the United States, there's, I think, a sort of a spirit of independence in many cases, and businesses often are operating very independently. But in the last 2 to 3 decades, the federal government has begun to make investments in research infrastructure that are available to companies. And this is another way the German companies can very easily get leverage in terms of the R&D investment that's already going on in the United States. So I think some of the examples that Charles was bringing up there would be like that there's some big infrastructure, there's pilot plant facility that you're able to make use of. Similarly, at my university, we have a number of different prototyping activities, the very large-scale infrastructure. We have testing and evaluation equipment that our partners like Siemens or Hexagon are using. Lights is one of our large partners in terms of large-scale metrology, and we have very, very significant equipment that's available to all of our partners because of this federal investment that comes. So a different way that companies can get some leverage and get some advantage as they bring their R&D activities to the United States.
Professor Heuken, do you also use this infrastructure funded by the government?
We have a company in the Silicon Valley in Sunnyvale, but so we set up our equipment from our own funds. What we use partially is characterization tools in the universities around and in the companies around, yes. But in general, we never succeeded getting any funding from the United States. We got funding in Taiwan, we got funding in China, but so far we were not successful in the US. And I think, or I find it very, very difficult, despite the fact that we have a company in the US, it's very difficult to enter the funding schemes and becoming a partner.
Well, personally, I think to talk about funding, it's a session of its own because I see big differences between the European or German way of funding and the US American way. of funding because I think the UNS are looking for success, are more looking for success, let me say it this way, than the funding here in Germany and Europe is. It's quite a new theme. We shouldn't stress it right here. Well, I would like to stick to you just a moment. Your company founded 4 research and development centers around the world, in Germany, in the United Kingdom, in California, and in China. What is the reason for this diversification, and what are the difference in the mentality and the skills and local support for your company?
Yeah, that's easy to answer. So first of all, in Germany, because that's the headquarter, in Germany we do the high-tech things, the latest development. So we develop the new products, we assemble the new products and so on. So that is really the heart of the of our technology. We are in the US because some years ago we acquired a company in the Silicon Valley. They do different kind of CVD equipment, and in the Silicon Valley you have all these semiconductor silicon-based experts. So we leave the R&D on this topic in this place because knowledge is there, and also part of the customers are there. We went to China with a special scope on our customer. So the argument there is be close to the customer. So we try to invite the customer, to teach them how our technology works, and so that the customer becomes successful. So it's more a production-oriented system. So for each location we have a clear task and a clear objective which need to be achieved.
So, would you like to try it to go
60
further?
locations. Where do I start?
Okay, but not all the locations are on R&D.
90% of our sales come from the auto industry, either first fit or aftermarket. So naturally, we have to be close to our customers. They started in the 60s already. So we are really organized in business units, but as well in regions. What I can say about German company is, there is a huge asset that you carry all over. If you go to China and you bring a business card from a German company, it says engineering, it says quality on it. If you go in the United States, it's the same story. So I think there's a huge asset having the German heritage, yet you have to be flexible enough to adapt to the different market, and the world is changing drastically. The business model are changing. Look at what's happening on our daily lives with connected devices. Probably most of the product that we are making will completely change, and even the way we are selling them. So you have to reinvent yourself, and very quickly. So
maybe it will change a little bit after this Volkswagen accident. Yeah, but German quality.
We don't make software, so we're okay.
Okay. So we talk about innovation, and innovation means success in the market. And a question to all of you here: is it easier to move from the idea, from the invention, to the product or innovation in the United States compared to Germany?
I think there is no difference. I think it's difficult at any place. And I think that is the main challenge of our today's companies, to manage this process. So we are so happy with our existing products. They are selling so good. So nobody is thinking about a real innovation. So I think we must make clear what means innovation. Innovation means somebody invented something. Yeah, and we make a product out of that and sell it to the market. And maybe all in the room exactly know what happens when you go to your board members and say, oh, there is an interesting invention in Japan. Somebody was able to, let's say, make blue light out of a semiconductor. So that is a story 20 years old. Today we have blue LEDs and white LEDs and lighting. But imagine what happens 20 years ago. I would like to make a white light out of semiconductors. They throw you out of the office immediately. Yeah? So, and I think it's a difficult problem to manage this kind of innovation, and I think it's a key problem.
I think it's, innovations are inventions that you can sell, just as mentioned. And so by nature, innovations are difficult because you do something that you have never done before, either on the market side or on the product side. Where is the best place to do it? I think you have to have a very strong process. You have to be focused on speed. Naturally, there will be some part of the world that's of easier labor load to allow you to work overtime and so on than others. I think the size of the company and the size of the organization you are in, we are fairly slow in Germany because we are very large in Germany.
Yeah.
Things are happening very quickly in Japan and in China and so on. So I think it's not one size fits all. It's really, you have to challenge yourself. You have to keep pushing because the competition is not sleeping, and that's really what we are focusing. And one way we did this, we actually reinvented all our innovations with one dimension, which was the time to market. And we measure everything to this time to market. And we demand that the projects are moving forward. And now we see, quite a good progress. United States, it's easy to start a company. The startup company, we made it in half a day, it was quite easy. Now you still need to do the proper research, the proper product, the go-to-market, the patents, the IP, and this is pretty standard anywhere you go.
Yeah. Okay, time to market is a good point. You have to speed up the process of innovation, of developing and so on. And we just talked about the best, let me say, young professional, best talents or whatever. Do you see any differences between United States and Germany?
Well, I think there's a little bit of a cultural difference. The German colleagues are very good at engineering. They work the details and so on. If you look in the United States, I think just the way people are educated in the school. I mean, my children go to school in the United States, and I see how they get educated. I think this creativity and innovation is part of the daily education from early on. So this can-do attitude, and you can do anything you want. Sometimes frustrating for Europeans because it seems like they don't know what they're talking about. But I think this can-do attitude and willing to try things, and if you fail, it's okay. At least you tried. I think this is helpful in some cases.
Yeah. I would like to give you an example, and I would like you to give me an answer on your personal opinion on that. When I'm going to ask companies for example, in Silicon Valley, where got you all these top talents from? And they will ask you, well, most of them will ask you from the top universities of the surrounding, of course. But we don't wait for them to finish with a university degree. So it's just enough that they are students on these universities. In Germany, companies say a business location Germany is in a big danger because we can't find engineers with experience in certain fields. So what we are looking for in Germany is engineers with an experience of, let's say, 2 or more years in a certain field. And now the questions. Sometimes that are the same companies. Siemens, for example, says in Germany the second sentence, and in the US the first sentence. So why?
Well, I think the company should have the same policy, and the way we do this, we really like to take students on board very early on. So, if you looked in my German tech center, I have probably I have about 30 to 40 engineers at any given time, and about 15 students working there. So we have a lot of students doing research, MBA students, mechanical engineering students, and so on. What do they want? They want experience. They want to build their resume, their CVs, right? They want to look for a good job. And then we want, them to bring fresh ideas and to help us to do some things that consultant could do. I'd rather hire an MBA student to do research for me than to pay a consultant high fees.
Yeah.
And I do exactly the same thing in the United States. I have a very small team on the campus. We have about 10 researchers, and we have 5 students. And they're very creative. They ask me, Charles, why do you wear a watch? And I say, what do you ask me the question? I say, well, you have an iPhone, so you don't need a watch. So they challenge you. And this is good.
Okay.
I'd like to maybe touch on that for a minute. I think one of the assumptions of your question is very limited. I've been at UNC Charlotte in North Carolina University for more than 20 years, but before I came there, I worked on the campus at Stanford. So I've been around the Silicon Valley quite a bit, and over the years I've been back and forth there quite a bit. I have a lot of experience. Certainly it is the case that there are people that are leaving their university places while they're students to go to work in the Silicon Valley. I think it happens a very small amount of times, but it does happen every once in a while. But more importantly, I think there are lots of different models about how students are engaged or getting experience or working with companies along the way of their education, aside from just leaving school. And so, for example, in my state, the population of my state is around 9 million people. At any one time, we have about 250,000 students at public universities in the state. So there's a lot of students there. At my institution, there are 28,000 students at any one time. 95% of the students at my institution complete their degree while doing some kind of work-oriented experience with companies that are principally within 50 miles of Charlotte. So Charlotte is a population center. There's more than 2 million people around Charlotte. This university is quite a large one with significant concentration in science and engineering and computing. There are more than 5,000 students at any one time that are engaged and do work experience, working with companies either on campus or beyond the campus, and working to finish their degree. I think that's much more the likely outcome that you see when students begin the university. There are some very talented people that will carry into their career without never starting at the university or only having a little bit of experience. But the most common experience that we see in the United States, and for the students to be successful, is to have some work experience with employers while they're going to school. So.
What about the German students? Are they different?
I think German students are different, and I think one point is quite clear. In future, we will have a shortage in well-trained engineers and technical staff. So that is from when you look into all this investigation, that's quite clear. And when things like to change, like automotive industry, when Google says, oh, we built an autonomous car, then BMW answers, oh, we hire 3,000 engineers and do the same. And then the next company says, oh, we hire 5,000. These people are not available. We don't educate so much. So that must be quite clear. And so industry, I think it's a must for industry to talk to the students as early as possible. And so I'm working at the university. When you talk to the students, they say, oh, drinking beer every evening is possible because we have companies inviting us for internship, for parties, for barbecue, and they only want to give us a job. So we don't have enough time. German students are not able to go to the companies so early because to the introduction of the bachelor and the master, the workload is so large, timing is so tough, and everybody would like to push the students to finish in time, so that there is absolutely no time to do that. And I, as a professor, really recommend the students, do your studies, finish your master, your bachelor, and then do all the other things. And wasting time at McDonald's to earn some money is really wasted time and money. And that's also a clear message to our government. Please support the students that they are able to finish their studies. again, going to McDonald's, earn some money is wasted time, not for the students, but also for our community, because we need these people.
So maybe it's a race for human resources in the future, and it's maybe that you are, let me say, that you have more ideas how to win the race.
Well, there are a number of different things that we work on with our partner companies. I think first of all, we go out and ask the partner companies what sort of things that would help in terms of having impact on their success. Some of the things that we've done with my university within both the Charlotte region but also with national companies is at times we have chosen to tailor the curriculum in some of our professional schools. So in computing and engineering, in both cases, there are degree programs that are available where there are concentrations in areas that are important for particular companies in sectors in the Charlotte region. So energy is a big sector, particularly electricity generation, transmission and distribution, very big sector in the Charlotte region. And you can get 3 different engineering degrees with a concentration in energy, which has a certain amount of curriculum that these companies have defined in order that they can get these students to be moving more quickly into areas of expertise that are important to their companies. We have other types of programs like that in finance. So the financial services industry, banking is a very large sector, again in Charlotte, both from in banking these days, almost everything's called risk. But on the other hand, the technology aspect of banking is also there's a big demand for more skills in technology. So both in risk and technology, we have, again, tailored programs. In the technology area, we actually have a program where the students become employees of the bank while they're students so that they can work on live technology systems within the bank. And many times they're bringing innovation into the bank while they're students. So once again, these are areas where we've been willing to be aggressive in terms of working with companies at looking for what they want. It's something that you need to do at scale. We can't do it for 3 students. We need to find opportunities that are broad across the sector. But we think that that's one case. Another thing that you see in the American universities in general is that we're moving more to more modularized degree programs. So a student, in the past, at my university, because it's in an urban area, students might start and study for 2 or 3 semesters, say 18 months. They might work for a while, they might come back. We would rather that they not do that. We would rather that they finish, again, like Michael said, as quickly as possible. But at the same, and so in order to try to address that, we've sort of modularized some of our degree programs so they can continue to study, even if they do take some time out to work and try to finish as close as possible to their 4-year schedule.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe I'm allowed to answer. I'm strongly against tailored studies for certain industries, because we all know during your work life you will change position very often, and you will change companies and topics very often. So what I recommend: teach the basics. Maxwell's equations are true in all kind of industries, even in banking. And nobody will be against these laws. So that is what the student should know: the basic laws, the basic principles, understand the basic things. Yes, of course, if there's some time left, you can specialize in some things, but very broad, yeah, so that you are flexible and can move into all kind of directions, because you need to do that during your whole work life.
Well, I don't know, perhaps I'm moving into murky territory here. Maybe the last thing you want to do is hear 2 academics argue, but I'll just say that, of course, we're offering the educational components that you'd expect at a university, and the choices that we made are made with quite a bit of study and analysis, and they represent typically, say, 10%, maybe 15% of the curriculum, and of course the students our goal is to make sure that our students are prepared for a long career of many different jobs.
So I would like to open the panel somewhat. Who is going to ask the first question? Okay, no questions in the room, so we are looking for the next break, I think.
You were really too good.
But let me close with a final round of questions to each of you. And if you had one wish for the cooperation of academic research institutes with industry, how would this be? I'd like to start with you.
Okay. I think being very close to the university is important. And you know, when I made a proposal to the German management to put part of the research team very far away from Stuttgart and on the campus of university and releasing space, we don't even own it, and I mean, talking about breaking most of the rules that was in the book was there. You know, I was advocating that collision of ideas is very important for innovation. And being there, we will be exposed to a lot of different people. I've been very surprised and impressed by the fact that actually I was right. And I surprised myself by the fact that it was way better than I thought.
Yeah.
I mean, we involved on sensors, we involved in things that was not even on the map. But just because people are there, because consortium are there, because people walk by, because you go to a cafeteria with other folks, it's very key. So I think what's important is the proximity. So one wish I would have is to make the space on campus a bit more affordable for company. It is pretty pricey. Mm-hmm. And I can see a mid-size company or a small-size company says, I would love to do it. I can't afford the leasing, rent, and whatnot, and they may just go a few miles away in the city, and I think you would lose. I mean, if you're 2 miles away or if you're 2,000 miles away, it makes a big difference, you know, and so I think being 10 meters away, it's the key. So I'm sure there's probably a program out there, but that's what I would wish, more affordable space.
Yeah, there are already statistics about that, how much a distance should be between colleagues or other people who are working together. Right. No more than 10 to 30 meters. Yeah, so it's you?
I think in terms of what I'd wish for, I wish that from both sides, both the universities and the companies, that they would work harder at making it known what they're looking for. But also, I guess speaking from the university side, I'd like that my company partners would think more broadly about what the opportunity is at the university. So it's very common that my business partners will come and ask about talent, right? Universities are a great source of talent. Sometimes they'll recognize that discoveries or innovation are things that you might find at a university. As Charles was talking about, I mean, leasing space, this is another common thing that's available. Infrastructure, whether it's space for your R&D group, whether it's access to large-scale measurement equipment or to different kinds of computing opportunities. There's quite a bit of infrastructure that we can offer to our company partners in terms of moving things along. But to the last, I'd say a lot of times only maybe our most sophisticated partners appreciate that whether they're participating in a consortia, whether they're interacting with our faculty or our students, that there's a big opportunity to identify customers. Not that the university is going to buy anything, but that there are many different companies that cross paths at these R&D consortia. There are many companies that are involved with our students and our faculty. And beyond customers, also networks, whether they're potential members in your supply chain, or other partners that you'd be looking for. So I think that's what I'd really like to work on more, to make sure that companies are able to take full advantage of really what is a breadth of offerings that the research universities can offer.
We have never done it, nobody needs it, and we are not able to do that. That are the key statements for innovations, and I think industry should pick up the possibilities with the universities and work together with the universities to answer or to get more of these statements.
Okay, thank you. Many thanks to the panelists for the detailed discussion here, and I think you have given us some very good insights. Many thanks to you for your attention. And I think we have a coffee break right now, and next sessions will start in 15 minutes from now. Is it correct? Exactly. So, thank you and goodbye.